Good evening, sports betting fans. This is Hardways Mike with SBI. I know it is late here on Monday, but we were having some technical difficulties with the internet earlier today. We weren't able to get on the line with Aces like we usually do on Monday. No worries. We are here today to talk through the weekend's sports betting action, tonight's sports betting action, and then what's coming up the rest of this week. Before we jump into it, let's look at the scores across the MLB. Today, we had the Royals beating the Guardians 6-4, and then we have a bunch of games in progress. A little smaller slate today. White Sox up over the Nationals right now, 3-0. Brewers and Cardinals are tied at 0 apiece here in the third. Reds are up over the Twins 4-1. Mets and Marlins tied at 1. Phillies are beating the Braves right now. We're the dog in that, I believe. Phillies are minus 115. We're minus 115 on the money line. They're up in the bottom of the fourth inning there. Rangers up over the Red Sox 1-0, and then Orioles, Astros tied at 0. It is the first inning there. We've got 3 games left to go today. So let's head over to our MLB Today page and see what we have going on. Well, we've got the Padres and the Rockies. The Padres are big favorites. That's Michael Wacha on the mound for the Padres, 11-4 record with a 3.43 ERA this year versus Ty Blach for the Rockies, 3-1 record with a 4.64 ERA. As I mentioned, the Rockies are the dogs in that. The Padres big favorites, minus 267 on Caesar Sportsbook if you want to back the Padres. If you want to back the Rockies, you can get them at plus 225 at a couple places, Bet Rivers, FanDuel, and BetMGM. So there you go. If we look around, we've got the Athletics and the Mariners. The Mariners are on the road, but they're the favorites in that. The A's have J.P. Sears on the mound. Got a 5-11 record with a 4.45 ERA versus Brian Wu for the Mariners, 3-4 record with a 4.16 ERA. The Mariners minus 174, best line on FanDuel Sportsbook. Caesar Sportsbook plus 150 for the A's. You can also get that at DraftKings and PointsBet. And then finally, we have one game left to go today. That's the late game. That is the Tigers and the Dodgers, as you would expect. The Dodgers are big favorites in that. We've got Eduardo Rodriguez for the Dodgers, 11-8 record with a 3.32 ERA. So actually not a bad year for him versus Lance Lynn, former White Sox Lance Lynn, 11-11 record with a 5.94 ERA. Dodgers are the favorite, as I mentioned, minus 185 are the best odds on DraftKings Sportsbook. If you want to back the Tigers, you can at plus 160 on Bet Rivers and PointsBet. We will be back later this week to talk more baseball. We're not slowing down. We still have a couple weeks of regular season baseball to go. We do have some teams that have pretty much phoned it in that will be maybe not trying out some stars, maybe some calling up some young prospects to see what they have going on. We have a nearly full slate tomorrow and Wednesday, and then I think we have a shorter slate on Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But yeah, we've got the standings are rounding out into form. We have division winners being crowned. We have playoffs coming to a head here very, very quickly. We're in the wild card. It's certainly something we'll be keeping an eye on, especially in the AL for that third spot there. We've got, Toronto is in the second spot, and Texas has come storming back a little bit, 6-4 in their last 10, and they are now in the third spot. Seattle's one game behind, and the Yankees, I wonder if they're going to try to make a push, 6.5 back there of the wild card. And on the other side, we've got that the Cubbies have slipped in. They are in the third spot there in the NL, and then Miami is also there as well. It looks like the Cubs have the tiebreaker there, and then the Reds are 0.5 games behind that. So they are all kind of bunched there, and San Francisco is not too far behind, as well as the Padres, and even Pittsburgh and the Mets could make a run if they really wanted to. That's it for Major League Baseball for tonight. We've got a couple of games here, as our social media team pointed out last night. We've got kind of a weird schedule for Monday Night Football this week. We've got 2 Monday Night Football games going on, and they overlap for an hour, which is very odd, but here we are on it. The Saints and the Panthers are playing right now. It is a low-scoring game. 6-3, the Saints are up over the Panthers, so they've been trading field goals back and forth. It doesn't look like it's been much action at all there. Neither quarterback has thrown for 100 yards. But the Browns and the Steelers just started. Steelers score. They are the first team to score here. Alex Highsmith intercepted Deshaun Watson for a 30-yard touchdown. Boswell made the extra point. So that is the Steelers up 7-0 over the Browns. Very early fashion. If you are back in the Steel City, then you've got to be happy about that. Elsewhere, we had a great week of NFL action in week 2. We had a pretty slow start to the day yesterday. Let's start with Thursday. We had the Eagles and the Vikings, big scoring affair there. The Eagles end up winning 34-28. The Vikings are 0-2. The Eagles are 2-0. The Eagles look like they righted the ship versus that shaky win versus the Patriots in week 1. The game started a little slow yesterday, and then they came roaring back. I think there was only 1 or 2 games that went under the total so far this week. But last night we had an incredible game between the Dolphins and the Patriots. Very exciting. Actually, it looked like that game went under as well. But the Patriots lose on a controversial overturn of a first down. What looked to be a first down on the field. Mike Gesicki, the tight end, caught it, pitched back to a lineman who looked like he got it pushed there. The call on the field was a first down. It was overturned on replay. I don't think it should have been overturned. I don't know if there was enough evidence to overturn it, but that was it. That's all she wrote. It was a turnover on downs. That was fourth down. Dolphins seal it out. They seal the win 24-17 over the Patriots. The Packers lose to the Falcons on a last-second field goal, 25-24. Bills put the hurt on the Raiders, 38-10. The Ravens up over the Bengals, 27-24. Bad news for Bengals fans. It looks like Joe Burrow tweaked his calf in that game, and that calf that he hurt in preseason, and we're not sure what that looks like for the skill position players and the offense of the Bengals in general. They're now 0-2. Their season starting to look like it could slip away very quickly. The Seahawks came roaring back from the line and beat the Lions in overtime, 37-31. Titans up over the Chargers. Chargers are now 0-2. Titans are 1-1. The Chiefs and the Jaguars. This is a low-scoring game. Not much action going on in this game at all. Looked like a bunch of mistakes on the Jaguars side. The Chiefs win that one 17-9. Colts up over the Texans. 49ers beat the Rams. And this was a weird one because the Rams are down by 10 points with 4 seconds to go or something. The spread was plus 7.5. And Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, decides instead of trying for a touchdown, I believe they're on the 30-yard line, something like that. Let's see where they were. They were on the San Francisco 20-yard line, so they were in the red zone. Instead of trying for a touchdown, game was over either way. They elect to kick a field goal, and this field goal covers the spread. The Rams bettors were happy. I'm sure the 49ers bettors were apoplectic. That was one of the more interesting decisions that I've ever seen in sports betting. Why a team would choose when the game is over to kick a field goal and cover the spread, it makes you wonder about a couple of things. I don't think there's anything funky going on. It's just a weird decision on Sean McVay's part. But the Giants were they were the big favorite, though they were -4 against the Cardinals. The Cardinals ended up scoring the first 20 points in that game, and then the Giants come roaring back. They end up winning that one 31-28. Cowboys up over the Jets. That Cowboys defense is nasty, even though they did play against the Jets team. And then the Commanders over the Broncos 35-33. So that's it. Right now we've got, again, nothing has changed between the two Monday night games so far. I forgot to mention, I want to put it out of my mind here, the Bears and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers beat the Bears 27-17. The Bears and Justin Fields, they look just terribly lost on offense. It is a disappointing year. We thought that Justin Fields was going to take that step forward. Not sure that that is the case. Heading over to week 3, the Thursday night game is the Giants and the 49ers, and the Giants are the dog in that, plus 430 on FanDuel Sportsbook. The 49ers are minus 550. That's the best line. You can get that on DraftKings and Caesar Sportsbook. If we look at the spread, minus 10 to minus 10.5, depending on where you get it. You can get it minus 10 at minus 124 on DraftKings or minus 10.5 at minus 110 on BetMGM. If you want to back the Giants, you can get them at, actually, this is a pretty good line here for the Giants, plus 10.5 at minus 107 over on BetRivers, plus 10.5 at minus 105, even better on FanDuel Sportsbook. Otherwise, you can get plus 10 at minus 104 at DraftKings. So much better option there. Get that hook there on the Giants. Let's see, what other games? We'll be talking about the games later in the week as we draw nearer to both Thursday and Sunday. But one game that I think people are going to be interested in is the Saints and the Packers in NFC Showdown there. That game is at, let's see, it's a noon game, so 12 o'clock Central Time. Let's see what the line looks like on that one, if I can find it here. Looks like we don't have lines. Well, of course we don't have lines on that game yet. The Saints are playing right now. So I would guess Packers minus 2.5 if it's at Green Bay. Just throwing it out there. Not sure what it is yet. We'll find out as soon as the Saint game ends up. A couple of 0-2 teams, though, the Chargers and the Vikings. I believe that's an after. Nope, that's also a noon game, so it's in Minnesota. So the Chargers, that's a pretty close game there. Let's look at the money line here. We've got Minnesota minus 105 on one side. That's on DraftKings Sportsbook. And then Chargers minus 105 over on Caesar Sportsbook. So pick your poison there. And plus 1.5, minus 1.5, depends on where you get it. You can get plus 2.5 points bet minus 144 the Chargers, or minus 1.5 plus 100 even odds on the Vikings there at BetRivers and FanDuel Sportsbook. One team that I'm sure that people are going to be interested in are the Bills and the Commanders. Wondering, did the Bills make it? Did they kind of right the ship there? Well, minus 275 over on BetMGM versus plus 235 on Caesar Sportsbook for the Commanders. So the Bills minus 6 to 6.5 there. Commanders plus 6 to 6.5. Let's see here. Eagles, Buccaneers. Eagles are the favorite in that, minus 5.5. Rams and Bengals. People are a bit surprised with that Rams team, but the Bengals are still the favorite in that, -1.5, over under 43.5. Low-scoring games, it looks like. Trying to see if we have any standouts. Anything over 50 this week. Doesn't look like it. A lot of 44s, a lot of 47s. 44.5, 37 on the Patriots Jet, over under 37 in that game. That's kind of surprising there. Well, I guess it's not too surprising there with those teams. Neither team has terribly great offense. So 37, over 36.5 even at some places, over 36 at DraftKings -133. If you want to back the under, you can get under 37.5 at -110 over on FanDuel Sportsbook, 43.5, 45. So nothing over 47.5 yet this week. The largest spread, actually, I take that back. The Vikings and the Chargers, 40-54. So big line on that. Over 50, let's see here, 53.5 at -118 on Bet Rivers. Under 54.5 at -115 on FanDuel. Under 54, -110 at a bunch of places. So that is a big line there. And then the Bears and the Chiefs. The Bears are playing the Chiefs here this week. That game is at, let's see, what time's that game at? That's a 3:25 game. Chiefs are the favorite in that, no surprise there. -715, huge favorites there. The spread on that, -13 to 13.5 for the in favor of the Chiefs. Over under 47 to 48.5. You want to take the over 47, you can actually get that at -1. Let's see, -132. Over 47.5, -110 on BetMGM. That one at -132 is on DraftKings. Under 48 at -110 on Caesars and PointsBet and Bet Rivers. So we will be covering more NFL football as we draw near. Let's see if the scores have changed at all. The Browns kicked the field goal, so the Browns are on the board. Good for the Brownies there. All right, college football. We had a lot of action going on. Tough to keep up with everything going on. We did have some buys this week, but just looking around, Miami beating up on Bethune-Cookman. No surprise there. Florida State sneaks by Boston College. I still think that Florida State team is pretty good. 31-29 there, Florida State over Boston College. Let's see if we've got Penn State beat Illinois. LSU whomped up Mississippi State 41-14. I thought Mississippi State would put up a bigger fight there. Utah still kind of struggling to find their rhythm on offense there. 31 points against Weber State when they were big favorites in that, 26.5. Notre Dame, that Notre Dame team with the new quarterback looks pretty good. 41-17 over Central Michigan. Let's see, any other, Iowa, big score. If you read our recap of the weekend, our email that the Real Jay-Z puts out, you know what happened in that Iowa game. They covered the 28.5 point spread there by pushing for it in the last quarter there and the last play of the game. Very surprising there. Let's see, that last play of the game, was it in fact the last play of the game? 33 seconds left. Well, not quite the last play of the game, but 33 seconds left. 4th and goal on the Western Michigan 2. They go for a touchdown. Big surprise there. That push for 325 might be a real thing, as we had talked about. Georgia up over. They did struggle with South Carolina, 24-17. Big surprise, Alabama just could not get anything going on offense. They rotated through a couple of other quarterbacks after benching Jalen Milroe. He will be the starter going forward, it looks like, but they only won 17-3 over South Florida. Just a big surprise there. In fact, South Florida covered that 34.5 point spread. Ohio State covered their 29.5 point spread by beating Western Kentucky 63-10. Washington up over Michigan State. UCLA over North Carolina Central. Washington State, that offense is firing on all cylinders. Northern Colorado did cover the spread of 46.5, but that Washington State team, led by our good friend Cameron Ward, came through in the clutch, 64-21. Tennessee, the number 11 team in the nation, loses to Florida. They drop a game. Florida covered the 5.5 point spread, winning outright 29-16. Tennessee looked lost on offense. They could not get much of anything going. Big surprise there. They're going to drop. They dropped in the rankings quite precipitously. Mississippi up over Georgia Tech. Michigan over Bowling Green. Oregon beat up on Hawaii. Texas wins over Wyoming. No surprise there. And then that Colorado State game, that's a game that I stayed up to watch. It went to overtime. It looked like Colorado had that game in hand at one point. I believe the score was, they were up by, let's see here. Colorado State was up 28-17. Colorado takes the lead, 35-28, and then Colorado scores with no time on the clock to take it to overtime, but Shedeur Sanders passed to Michael Harrison for an 18-yard touchdown to win that game in the second overtime. Colorado looks unstoppable on offense. They look great. We'll see what happens. It looks like, let's see, what's his name? The two-way player, Travis Hunter, he is going to be out for a few games due to a big hit on him, so he's a playmaker on both sides of the ball. We'll see what Coach Prime can get on that, or a change on things going forward on that. Let's look across our this week in college football. Not sure if our games have populated yet, but we do have player props, of course, and we've got lines that we're tracking as well. So let's just look at a Big Ten matchup here. Wisconsin versus Purdue. Wisconsin is the favorite in that, minus 215 on the money line on Bet Rivers. That's the best odds. It's actually pretty good. That's 10 points better than BetMGM and 20 points better than FanDuel there. If you want to back the Boilermakers, you get them at plus 196 on Caesar Sportsbook. That is the best line that we're seeing across our game board. That game is on Friday. Looks like we have four games on Friday this week. Let's pull up week 4 here. Yeah, we got 4 games on Friday. No ranked teams, but we do have 4 games on Friday, and then a full slate on Saturday. Clemson versus Florida State. I'm sure everybody's going to be excited about that. That Clemson team looks good. That Florida State team looks great. Florida State is the favorite in that, minus 122 over on Bet Rivers versus Clemson, plus 110 on DraftKings, PointsBet, and Caesar Sportsbook. If we look for the spread on that, we've got Clemson plus 2.5 versus Florida State minus 2.5. Another game that people will certainly be tuning into is the Iowa-Penn State game. Iowa is the dog in this, big dog for Iowa. Actually, I think they're plus 500. Penn State minus 14.5. I'm sure Aces will have some things to say about that later in the week, but Penn State minus 650 on DraftKings Sportsbook versus plus 500 for Iowa on Bet Rivers. Again, we'll see what Aces has to say about that spread later in the week. I'm sure he's going to say Iowa by 1,000,000 and take the alt line on that. Utah, UCLA, a Pac-12 matchup. Utah's the favorite in that, minus 188 on FanDuel versus UCLA. Short spread, or very minimal line difference there, plus 175 on PointsBet. What I mean is the difference between those two lines is not very big. That's what I meant to say on that one. There is the Notre Dame game that I'm sure people are going to be very excited about, because Notre Dame takes on Ohio State, and we know several in our midst that are both Notre Dame fans and Ohio State fans. Notre Dame is the dog in that. That is really no surprise there. That game's 6:30 primetime. Of course, it is in South Bend, so Notre Dame is the home team. Plus 146 on FanDuel if you want to back the Fighting Irish. That is on FanDuel Sportsbook. If you want to back Ohio State and the Buckeyes, minus 167 over on Bet Rivers. Let's see what the over-under in that game is, because I've got a feeling it's going to be big. 53.5, actually. 53.5 to 54. Not as big as I thought it was going to be. The over-under in Clemson, Florida State game, 55. Let's see if we got a big game. 54.5 for Alabama, Ole Miss. We'll see what the Alabama team can do. They need a quarterback desperately. Oregon and Colorado, that's another game that people are going to be tuning into for certain. We'll see what Coach Prime can put on the field versus that Oregon team that looks unbeatable. Colorado is the dog, plus 850 on DraftKings Sportsbook. If you want to back the Ducks, minus 1,000 on Caesar Sportsbook. I'm sure that the real Jay-Z will have some thoughts on that game. Maybe he thinks the spread should be larger than that, but the over-under in that game is 71. 71. If you want to take the over, you can get over 70 at minus 130 on DraftKings, over 70.5 at minus 114. Minus 110 over on Bet Rivers. Under, if you want to take the under, 71.5 is a lot. Under 71.5 at minus 105 on PointsBet. Washington, Oregon State, 56.5 on that game. Washington State, Oregon State, 56 on that game. We had a lot of potentially high-scoring games there. Washington and Cal, 62.5. So a lot of games that have spreads in the high 50s, 60s, and so on. Should be an exciting weekend. We will talk more about it as we draw near to the week. As I mentioned, we've got, let's just count them up just to be safe here. We've got a Thursday game, Georgia State and Coastal Carolina. That's at 6:30 p.m. Then we've got 4 Friday games. 4 Friday games. Saturday games, we'll have a Saturday night game. The late game will be New Mexico State and Hawaii. You can also stay up and watch Cal and Washington, and then Arizona State and USC. USC's minus 33.5 with the presumptive Heisman finalists, at least finalists, if not winner, Caleb Williams leading that USC team off of a bye. Let's see what the spread is on that. As I mentioned, I think it's 33.5. Yep, 33.5 there at Bet Rivers at minus 110 for USC. I'm going to close it out now. We do have a lot of NFL and NCAA football to talk about later this week. In addition to football, maybe we'll peek in on the PGA Tour. Let's see what we have going on. The Fortnite Championship was last week. Let's see. The Gala won that one, minus 21 under. So 21 under par. Kim at 19 under. Davis at 17 under. Let's see. We've got the Ryder Cup in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I believe. Next week. No, next week. Yeah, next week. Next week? Forgive me, this is great radio, I know. But I believe that's next week. The Ryder Cup is next week, so that'll be exciting. That is over in Italy on that. We'll definitely be covering that. We'll see if we can get the Madman Woj on to talk that one as well. I'm going to wrap it up here. We'll come back to player props later in the week. Let's see if there's anything popping up here. Anything on our top player props page, just kind of looking around. Anything exciting? Well, over 0.5 total touchdowns for Trey Benson for Florida State, minus 115. That's a pretty good line there for that. Let's see, Johnny Wilson, over 0.5 total touchdowns also for Florida State, plus 105. Bo Nix, so that would be a rushing or receiving touchdown, most likely a rushing touchdown for Bo Nix, minus 155. That is not a great line there. I'm not sure I'm too thrilled about that one. Plenty of options, though, for top player props and player props. Head over to sportsbettingintel.com and check out everything that we have going on. Our game board, spreads, money lines, totals, analysis. You can check each individual game page. And, of course, our This Week in College Football, our player props page, and our top player props page, new for NCAA football this week, in addition to our weekly recaps and our Conference of the Week previews. We have a ton going on for college football this week. I do want to leave you with a couple of plus EV bets before I close it out tonight. As I mentioned, if you want to take Colorado, you certainly can. Well, let's start with an easier one. We'll start with one that's more likely to hit. Plus 6.42% plus expected value bet. So that's really good, over 6%. Alabama, Ole Miss, over 58.5. It is a slightly alt spread, so you're going to tease that up a little bit. Over 58.5. That's over on Bet Rivers. Bet Rivers seems to have a lot of these alt lines that are good plus EV, so definitely keep an eye on Bet Rivers. They're a Canby book, meaning they to get their odds from Canby. So if you have other Canby books in other states, you can certainly get the same odds there. But that's plus 132. Again, that Alabama, Ole Miss game, over 58.5 at Bet Rivers, and plus 132 is a plus 6.5% positive expected value bet. So I'll be betting that one. And then I mentioned the Colorado money line, Colorado versus Oregon. That is at noon on Saturday. I believe it's at noon. Let's double check that. We'll make sure we get you the right information in case you're waiting to bet it. Let's see here. Week 4, that game. Let's see here. No, actually, that's at 2:30. It must have changed it. Anyway, Colorado versus Oregon this Saturday, the 23rd, 2:30 p.m. Colorado money line at plus 850 on DraftKings. I called it out earlier in the podcast. That is a plus 9.2% positive expected value bet. If you think the Buffs, if you think Coach Prime can get his team ready up and take down the Oregon Ducks, make sure you bet that money line over on DraftKings. It is a positive expected value bet at just over 9% plus EV. So that's it for me today. I have a lot to cover. Let's take a look at one last peek and see if anything has changed. Well, the White Sox are up 6-0 now. Good for the White Sox. Still the same scores we looked at. Steelers up over the Browns 7-3, and then 6-3 at halftime for the Saints and the Panthers. Low scoring game there. Sucks to be anybody in the audience anybody that's there watching that game in person. But that's it for me. We'll be back later this week. Hopefully we'll be able to talk more football and more college football and more baseball, as well as we see over here at SBI. You don't always have to bet, but when you do, wager wisely.